Honorable Committee, Honorable departmental officials. It's 2:03 today, the 19th of October, 2023. I have contacted the chairperson. He's on his way, but for the sake of continuing with the meeting, the members of the committee requested that a interim chairperson be selected until the chairperson has arrived. So members, in terms of the WCPP Standing Rule 82, subsection 3 states that in the absence of the chairperson from a meeting, the committee must elect one of its members to be acting chairperson at that meeting. In this case, members, it will be an acting chairperson until the chairperson has arrived at this meeting to take over his duties. Can we please have nominations for acting chairperson? Member Maseko.
Thank you very much, Chair. I nominate Member Derek America.
Member Maseko is nominating Member America. Is there more nominations? Member Seleko.
I second the nomination.
Sorry.
I second the nomination of Member Seko.
The nomination from Member Seleko is seconding for Member America. Ladies and gentlemen, the motion has failed. It is off the table.
I'm stated now.
Member America.
It's my time to shine. Come on.
Honorable members, that motion is Standing Rule 82(3) is effective.
It's obsolete.
Not in motion right now. The chairperson has arrived. Thank you, Chair.
Honorable members, let us start the meeting of the Standing Committee on Public Accounts for purposes of looking into the annual report as well as the Auditor General report of the Department of Agriculture and its entity. The meeting is going to be conducted in 3 parts, where the first part is going to be the Standing Committee on Public Accounts together with the Auditor General and the Audit Committee for purposes of being briefed about the Auditor General on the audit outcomes of the department and its entity. That will be a closed session, which is the public is not allowed. After we finish that, we are going to go to the second part where we'll be joined by the department. And the third part will be where we'll be also joined by the members of the public. Those who want to ask questions can ask questions. For record purposes, can I get an indication of members that are present at the meeting?
Good afternoon, Chair, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Derek America. In the history of WCPP, the nominated chairperson who never assumed the position as chairperson. Thank you.
Afternoon, Chairperson and members and the colleagues from the AG. My name is Nomi Nkondlo. I'm the member of this committee. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, members, to the AG, the External Audit Committee, and everybody present. My name is Mbulelo Isaac Seleko, and I'm a member of the committee. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Andrikus van der Westhuyn. I'm an alternate member to this committee, but also the chairperson of the Standing Committee on Agriculture, Environmental Affairs and Development Planning, and therefore have an interest in the deliberations of this afternoon. Thank you, Chair.
Good afternoon, Chair, and good afternoon, AG and the Audit Committee. My name is Matlodi Maseko, and I'm the permanent member for the Standing Committee in Public Accounts. Thank you.
Thanks very much, honorable members. Now I'm going to hand over to the AG. As I normally say, that you take us through the report, talk us through the report, and if there are any salient issues you think needs our attention, please mention that and do so. And then after, we are going to give to the Audit Committee. And Oh, eh? Do introduction, but as and when a person speak, she or herself must introduce themselves for record purposes, the name as well as the position that we are occupying in. So we'll start with the AG, and thereafter we'll go to the committee. you to make some remarks if you want to make some introductory remarks in the HOD, and thereafter I will allow members to ask questions, and then as and when a member of your team speaks, he or she, they may introduce themselves on the name as well as the position that they occupy. When we're dealing with the report, we'll be dealing with the report in terms.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for this opportunity to appear before the Standing Committee on Public Accounts. I will not make substantive comments because we have a pretty good audit outcome. I have met with the audit committee members, and I regularly meet with my senior management in terms of the responsibilities that we have for the financial situation, and quarterly also both report to the House as well as to the Cabinet in this regard. So I have no further introductory remarks except to say thank you for this opportunity to account.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister HOD.
Thank you very much. Not much to say except to thank you, Chair, and the members for affording us yet another opportunity to account to your committee in terms of the work that has happened in the year under review. It was indeed a very important agricultural year in terms of harvest, but of course, the load shedding and the avian influenza, those are the challenges that confront the sector. Chair, one last important matter that I want to bring to attention is today the last SCOPA session for my CFO, Floris Eisama, is retiring from the 31st of December this year. But in the room here, we also have Lindy Govender, who will take over from Floris once he retires. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, HOD. Honorable members, as I've indicated to you that when we engage with the department in terms of asking questions and making comments or seeking point of clarity, we are going to deal with the report as of Section C, Section E, as well as Section F. If you do want to ask questions or comment, please, as well as the report of CASIDRA as well, ask questions in those three sections simultaneously. In other words, we are not going to say we're first dealing with C, then E, then F. So as I normally say, we take the report as read. So if I can get an indication of those members who would like to ask questions. Honorable Maseko, Honorable Seleku, Honorable Nkondlo, and I also assume Honorable America.
Thank you very much, Chair. And I just want to congratulate the department again for the clean audit. And usually members Seleku ask the question of now after the clean audit number 15, what's next? And one minister answered brilliantly and said after 15, 16. So I know what it meant for him that now we have to look to zoom deep into the performance. That is one of the issues from the standing committee that from SCOPA that we've been saying that now we have to look at the performance. And I think we are going to engage more today about the performance since we got the outcome on the performance. And also we are intrigued, I think, Minister, on the issue of some of your targets are not one financial year based. It goes for 5 years. And so if you have to be audited on a financial year, when do you see you performed? When do you say you underperformed based on the target that you set? But I want to find out, there is I'm trying to get my notes here, but I think it's Dear Mega. I want to find out about the 4.7 million that you discovered now on irregular expenditure. If we can get the details on that, how did you find out? And then what, if you can unpack in general, if you can unpack on it, we will appreciate that. Chair, I'm not going to ask questions for the sake of asking questions. The clean audit, and congratulations. Thank you very much.
No. Honorable Ngondo first, then Honorable Seleku, if it's age.
Teachers, it is notice. Thank you. Good afternoon, Minister and your team. Let me just start with page 147 in section C of the book of the department. And just want to ask if one takes from the attendance of the MCO on page 147, it seems the maximum meetings were 4. What's the reasons for these ones who would have attended only 1 meeting out of the 4? And then on the risks that the department is identifying around climate change, which I think is like your core business in as far as this department is concerned. I'm not sure, because I'm sure you've got research after research, and having set this side, one of the things that I'm always quite fascinated about in this department is the research work that gets to be done. And my issue is whether this research informs planning, because we continuously, we recently had to deal with floods, deal with this and the other, and these things would have been found in some of the previous reports produced by the same department. So at what point do we deal with this particular challenge? Because the notion of climate change, which has been with us since the COP17, COP this, at what point do we indeed be responsive? And I'm asking you, as a department responsible for all of this. And interesting, as you say, in key emerging risk in 148, that you are gonna be not shedding because you are doing it deliberately, staff turnover because people are retiring. What is the succession plan, HOD? Because indeed you got quite an more senior type of workforce at a senior management level. So how do you ensure that indeed you don't get to a point which has been seen in government in general, where now people who get to retire have to be called back, to come and work because such has not been done? So if you can just give an indication around that particular issue. And one last one on risks, Minister. This other time we're sitting with the Department of Social Development, and I think also the report of CASIDRA on some of these demand-driven related services that they provide. One of the things one is seeing is an increase. You'll be told that there's an increase. Sometimes also you were fortunate to have funds that were able, that's why you even had overachievement in some of these targets. But also social development was sitting here with the minister and the HOD indicating increase of poverty in households based on work that they are doing. And this is an issue that gets everybody, South Africa is a country, many around food security. And I don't see this risk. I don't know whether it's an academic risk that must all be discussed when there's a hoo-ha. I don't see this risk being placed here, because surely that particular information, including the food gardens that the department is leading, this indication, you would have gotten that indeed there is a issue of hunger outside there, and the numbers are increasing. If we all consider, the minister would make all the arguments here in the House about the effects of the kind of economic constraints that we have on households. How is this being mitigated? And I'm just asking from where you are sitting as the department. And then on this one, Chair, page 2, I think page 202, 203, on the fruitless and wasteful expenditure of 2022-2023 that is mentioned there. Please tell me what happened here. Why could this not be avoided? AG says special care or reasonable care was not taken for officials not to attend official events. There are 4 cases relating to costs thereof and having to pay cancellation fees, salary overpayment. Are there challenges of controls that are not tight enough for this amount, negligible as it is it a cause of concern? And the last one for me on this one is on supply chain. Whilst explained these projects, I see diesel being one of them, where you had to do agency procurement and limited bid, which I am sure was provided for under PFMA, doesn't mean there's any corruption, and that's not what I'm implying. All I'm asking is that in trying to ensure competitive bidding process where also you allow others to participate, are these projects?
Which page are you, Honorable?
I'm on page 204, 205, under procurement by other means, other than your competitive bidding. That are these projects that, as the department is saying, that indeed there would have been these exceptional circumstances that you end up having to have limited bids or agency procurement. Thank you, Chair, for now.
Thank you very much, Honorable Nkondlo. Honorable Sileko.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. Allow me also to greet the Minister, the HOD, and the rest of the team. And I will also start with what Member Maseko has said, that I think we've been grappling with the issue of performance, and I'm just trying to come to the balance, Minister, of saying the fact that one does not meet a target 100%, does it mean that there is no impact in terms of service delivery? I think that's one, because of course, when you set up targets differ. And as a result, and we have been trying to grapple with the AG as well, and we just want to ask from the department, would you say by virtue of not meeting one of the targets, maybe may say program 3 by 84%, that it means it has less impact in terms of service delivery? And that is the first. And also in terms of your opening remarks, HOD, in terms of that, most of the factors that impacts the sector or your department is mostly external. And you have said a lot in terms of 1 to 4. We can talk about the Ukraine-Russian war. We can talk about load shedding and all those kind of things. Would you say that you as a department is satisfied in how you have dealt, with these risks in this particular financial year? And if there was something different that you could have done in trying to mitigate all these risks that you have identified and dealt with in this particular year, what could it have been? And thirdly, in terms of your risk that you have mentioned, also in terms of your staff turnover, I would also like to know from the department whether you are worried that with the pronouncement from the National Minister of Finance that you have to cut, that there will come a time that some of your staff will have to retire, and then unfortunately you won't be able to fill those positions, and ultimately it's going to impact the kind of work that we are doing. You know, what is the next step? How are you going to make sure that what has been pronounced is not going to impact on the department? As we know, in the Western Cape, agriculture is one of the important sectors, you know, in terms of food security and livelihoods. And lastly, Minister, in terms of fruitless and wasteful expenditure, we have been seeing the trend that in some departments it would reflect, and then they would say like, and one would say, oh, when you hear there's fruitless and there's irregular, one would think, oh, there was theft there was corruption there, you know, and we had to pose this question to the AG as well. And I was very much, you know, happy to hear one of the departments in terms of the component of the staff in the supply chain management in a department, they were highly qualified, Minister. So I would want to get that assurance from you as well, that in terms of your supply chain unit, that they are highly qualified. And what was also mentioned in terms of why it might lead to irregular expenditure of mistakes is because supply chain management on its own, it's highly regulated. You'll have to deal with 100 issues. And as a result, because we are human beings, we are not immune to mistakes. Then a mistake would fall through. As a result, then it would actually be picked up by the AG. So the issue of supply chain being highly regulated, what has the department been looking at trying to engage the National Department of National Treasury, you know, just trying to make supply chain more, you know, an environment that is more, so that we can avoid these smaller things. Because some of the things that we find in our reports, we find that this thing could have been avoided, but because you have to, you know, to comply with a lot of things, you know, you tend to make mistakes, and then it puts a department in a very negative light. And I would just want to know whether there is any plans in the future in making sure that you are going to engage with the National Department of National Treasury. And also, lastly, the issue of consequent management. If one is found to have been negligent, because in supply chain there are human errors, there are systematic errors. But if it has been found that there was a human error in terms of negligence, has there been such instances when it comes to supply chain? And how have you been dealing with such issues? I think those are my questions for the day. Thank you very much.
Department.
Yes, Chair, thank you to those questions. I have to respond to Honourable Member Maseko. Shall I do so when she's back? Okay. I think it's just good order. Also, the HOD will respond to the issue of the targets in 5 years and the issue of the irregular expenditure. Honourable Member Nkondlo, this is a very important matter that you raise. It is also a matter that I took up personally, the issue of climate change. And I looked at our cabinet agenda and I said to the Premier, but I think we need to put this matter, climate change, permanently on the cabinet agenda so that it requires the necessary attention, as you rightfully now mentioned. And you said it's our core business. We're now making it our core business. And that's why I went to the cabinet. I said, not only must it be an item on the cabinet agenda, a permanent item, I also want the Interministerial Committee on Climate Change. And you are right, it's our core business. And that's why myself and Minister Bradell are members of the Interministerial Committee on Climate Change. But because I don't want to simply sit here and respond to floods. December, I have to respond to fires. I think there are global paradigm shifts happening in terms of the whole architecture of global climate change. But I'm not only interested in climate change for the sake of climate change. I'm interested in climate change in Mediterranean agricultural regions. If you say it's my core business, I'm in agriculture. Western Cape is a Mediterranean regions, and there are 5 Mediterranean regions in the world. So I want to understand what is happening in the climatic conditions in agricultural Mediterranean regions. And so for that purpose, Dr. Ilse Trautmann can elaborate on the work that we've been doing there together with other regions in the world. But your feeling that you express here, that does deserve more attention, more detailed attention, and more scientific approach to climate change is what Dr. Trautmann and Dr. Sebopetse will respond to, and also issues relating to research and development. He will also respond to the issue of the succession plan. I think those are very valid issues that you raised. Also, in terms of the sustainable resource use management, the colleagues will respond to that. I'm very happy that you raised the issue of the poverty in household. You know, those pages that you refer to, no reflection there. But if you turn to page 23 of that report, you will see we do speak about the threats in the country generally, but we specifically mention the word food security, food insecurity, and poverty that are prevalent and as a risk in this government. You will find that on page 23 of our annual report. Sorry, Chair, I know we're dealing with a different section, but it's just a cross-reference to the issue that she raised. So the HOD will further respond to that. Honourable Member Sileko, yeah, the HOD will respond to the impact on service delivery, whether you 80 or 85%, what does that mean in terms of targets not met? How does that impact on service delivery? I will leave that to the HOD. But you do raise another very important matter, Honourable Member Sileko, and that relates to sort of global uncertainties and wars and things. I met last week with a BFAP, and I asked them to present the research that they've done to look at all of that. And I just made some extensive notes during that meeting. And they raised the following uncertainties, and they say these uncertainties will remain. So it's not just looking back, but looking into the future. The situation around the war in Ukraine and Russia, the renewable energy, animal health, extreme weather conditions, the global trade environment and supply chain management, and the global economy and inflation. And we've seen the impact of food inflation already. So, but your question was more specific. You said, what is the plan of this department in relation to these particular risks? I leave that to the HOD and the team to say how we're going to respond to these risks that you raised, but also that was confirmed by a BFAP. The CFO and the team will respond to the fruitless and wasteful expenditure, and I'm very happy. I went yesterday to the Western Cape Cabinet. I asked them to confirm the appointment of the new new CFO, outstanding candidate, was previously in the Department of Police Oversight and Community Safety. That person is now present here, and I am extremely happy with the extreme competence of the new CEO. There will also be an overlap period because, as you rightly pointed out, this department has a finger and an activity in multiple things, and you need to have a person that completely understands the multiple entry points of this department, generally in society, but also in its industry, but also in the various subsectors of the various subsectors of the industry. Honourable Member Chair, if I can respond to Honourable Member Maseko. Philosophically, you know my attitude. If you say 10 or 12 clean audits, what next? Philosophically, I think my response is your past success is your greatest enemy. And so because what you then, if you depend on your past success, you say, well, let's relax. And that's where complacency comes in, and then you get a qualification. So philosophically and pragmatically, we believe that we must not relax, but we do believe that the next step is to further, as the point by Honourable Member, in terms of innovation in the supply chain, continuously looking into that. And I'm happy we will be looking into that space. The target for 5 years, as I said, the HOD will respond to that, and your issue about the irregular expenditure to do that. So that's our response from my side, but the HOD will be extensively deal with the issue. But I can assure Honourable Member Nkondlo that I am driving the issue of climate change. This is something that I'm going to champion, because I think this is an area where we see we had now 2 major floods, a flood in September and a flood in May. And I think we know the government does not have unlimited funds, and just to simply respond to it. But there is a good story which the Director Sustainable Resource Use Management can tell us what happened if we put the necessary infrastructure in rivers, how we can prevent floods and things like that. And she has a good story in this particular regard. But poverty, food insecurity is real. People are going to bed hungry. And certainly, this is a matter that is of great concern to us. Every year when I go to the MTech, I ask the Minister of Finance one single thing. And the one single thing I've asked her yesterday is to protect sustainable resource use management because of the conditions of climate change. And this is a matter that is now a transversal government responsibility. And I will make sure that it does get the necessary attention in the Cabinet, in Parliament, in the committee, and in the Interministerial Committee. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. HOD. Chair, thank you very much. Just to respond directly to questions raised by Honorable Member Nkontlo. And I think a direct question whether our research informs planning. Yes, it does. In fact, by the end of this financial year, we would have conducted 40 external evaluations, which over time has continued to inform the plans that we put in place. And I think Asia will talk to what the ecological infrastructure work, the impact it has on limiting the impact of floods. I mean, this year already we've seen 2 flood episodes, and in the places where ecological infrastructure work had taken place, there was less damage. And over the last 4 years, we invested about, I think, 134 million rands and released close to 130 million cubic meters of water, which obviously on a state line is equivalent to Berg River Dam, which if we were to build one today, it's about 4.2 billion rands. So that is how we've been tracking the work over time. The areas where this river protection works and alien clearing had taken place, there was really not an impact that would worry or concern agriculture. On the issue of food insecurity, a real issue for us, and that is why we respond through our food garden program. If you look in the annual report, I think we have delivered close to 4,000 such gardens across the province. And we think we are responding quite well, because if you look at the previous performance, we would achieve about 800 such gardens per annum. And we have quadrupled that over the past financial year. It's an important risk, I think, that need to be attended to all the time. We're also leading what we call the Nourish to Flourish mobilization strategy in the province as a department. And in the year under review, we had embarked on what we call learning journeys, where we get to these communities and engage with people, understanding what the real issues are. Many times government would rock up in communities and want to tell people what to do. Within the Nourish to Flourish strategy, our approach had always been that of getting to communities and engage with them, understand what are the issues and how to solve those particular challenges. Honorable Member Sileko, you raised very important issues, and directly, are we comfortable that we're dealing with the macro level risks? We want to believe we are, because climate change is it's one macro such risk, and we think our ecological infrastructure is responding to that. But already great work that we did in 2016 around Smart Agri Plan, where we encourage farmers to farm in a way that comply with the demands of the climate. We've commissioned a number of studies. One of those is the future of farming in arid and desert areas. again, beginning to say to farmers, you cannot farm the same way you farmed 100 years ago. Things has to change. Of course, the second risk is the issue of food insecurity globally. We think we're responding through our food garden program. The third one, which Minister refers to, is our biosecurity risks, which is becoming worse given the climate change. We've got a lot of what we call biological disasters. We think we are responding very well on that one. In fact, this year we launched for the first time what we call Veterinary Services Week, about creating awareness in the minds of people that biosecurity is everybody's business, but also taking a cue from the UN's approach in terms of what they call One Health, so that we look at the animal health, the human health, but more importantly, the environmental health. Am I worried about the budget cuts? Of course, we are big time, because if you look at the team here, on my structure, I've got 22 senior managers. And as we sit here, I think it's only 16 that we have. So there's about 4 or 5 positions that I need to fill. And those are critical posts that I have to fill. So we are indeed worried, but of course comforted largely by the fact that we've got what we call PC, as Minister would call it, partnerships and collaboration, working with the industry to ensure that we meet some of these the targets that we have to look at. Succession plan, a very important one. And Member Nkonde, if you look in the room today, I brought all my SMS members, because for me it's important that they also begin to appreciate what goes on in this room. And obviously it becomes very difficult in government, because I cannot appoint a director to start looking over the work that Ilse is doing, preparing that director to take over from Ilse in the next 3 to 5 years. It becomes very difficult and very tricky in that sense, but we're doing all we can to ensure that these young people that come in are actually developed and prepared to take over the next positions. With respect to the question, Member Maseko, you raised about the 4.7 irregular expenditure, I just whispered into my CFO's ears, because we don't know where that is, but he will respond to that broadly. 202 to 205, CFO will deal with that. Supply chain and the consequence management, CFO will attend to all that. Thank you very much.
Chair, thank you. Right. Perhaps, okay, I might come back to Member Maseko if you will permit me, that I can just understand your question in terms of the irregular. Or would you like to just tell me again, please?
Yes, I can, through you, Chair. I think when we engage with the Auditor General, there is a 4.7 that was discovered recently. Let me, which page is it on the report? And I had it just a second. It's on Cathedral. It's on Cathedral. Okay, in page 12 is the irregular expenditure amounting to 4.7 million was identified during 2022-2023. That relates to the previous 2020-2021 financial year. So I just needed the breakdown of that irregular expenditure, and how did you find it out now and not that financial year?
Chair, thank you. So the 4.7, that is then Casidra, and I assume Casidra will respond to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay, that's why I didn't understand. The number didn't ring a bell. I'm so sorry. Thank you. Right then, I think the HOD has dealt with retirements, etc., and I'm busy dealing with it. Fruitless or wasteful, Chair, right? So this one was an exceptional year, because you will also see the previous year was a 0. And it is one of those things that you don't hope it, well, I can't say you don't hope, you work towards it not happening, because as you know, fruitless or wasteful is what you take reasonable care. If you have taken reasonable care, it could have been prevented. And in other words, if it fails that test, it becomes fruitless or wasteful. Chair, what we do is we do have a policy, and we work in terms of the National Treasury Framework. Consequence management, I can just say it was asked later on with both fruitless and wasteful and irregular is on every case. Every case individually is being being investigated, for root cause and all those kind of things. And that are the things that we also work on to strengthen and controls. This is not an excuse, but we must understand that we also work through at about 45 offices through the province. So it is sometimes specifically on your petty caches and those kind of things that you might have a challenge. Chair, so yeah, this one was mostly people that did not attend. In other words, RSVPs that we didn't get. 84 of the 88,000 rand is that. Now, those the people within, in other words, personnel. Each one of them will be investigated. They will either get with root cause, etc. And if they can be identified, which they usually are, they will be debited, and there will be also consequence management. In other words, disciplinary action where necessary. So I'm not sure whether you would like more detail, because that detail we can get out. That is how we go about fruitless and wasteful as well as irregular. Irregular is mostly what happens in you pick it up more in supply chain, but there is also some irregular, that we can have in finance where we make direct payments that doesn't go through supply chain. The two there of the 12,000 rand. Incidentally, was incorrect tariffs that were used, and that was where we picked it up. And at finance, Chair, I think we are rather proud of the fact that these things are picked up by us and not the AG, because in other words, then we also know still that our internal controls work. What the problem is here is we picked it up too late, so then we see why it went through. So each one, I can assure you, it's a file that thick. Sometimes a 4,000 rand thing is a file that thick because you go through the same process, irrespective of that. So I hope that more or less answers the question on how we do that, because we are very serious about this, because it also reflects on my HOD's performance report, and obviously I would also like him to think of me as still a performer after that. Chair, then it was referred to, let me just get back to it that I see the salary overpayment. Salary overpayments do happen, and that happens usually because of process, of PERSAL, etc. You only have certain times where they do a cutoff, and then a payment run is done, as it's called, and that is done way above the department. It is usually done, I think, at province and national level. So then somebody, like we had not so long ago, somebody either able or somebody actually passed away 2 days before payday. Then you can't stop it anymore. So that is the kind of thing that happens. It is the exception, but it does happen. And then we've written an SOP on that one. So where we can still stop it at the bank, we do. And then if you will owe the person money afterwards, after you've reconciled, then you pay it back, because it's much easier to pay it back than to try to get it back. Because as soon as that happens, you've got to go through the process of debt collecting, and the people usually don't pay, and then you go process of debt, going to the state attorney, and they usually look at those. You will see this one was a 7,000 rand one. They say it's not economically viable to pursue, so then you have to write it off. So the only way we can really do that is by prevention. But the prevention sometimes just can't happen due to very practical reasons. Supply chain.
CFO, just before you, this is a matter that has been coming on from various departments, the matter of overpayments. And most of the explanation that is common is the fact that a person died, and of course, That's an act of God. There's nothing we could do about that. Now, in that instance, what do you do? Do you get the money back or you forfeit the money?
Chair, we actually do treat all these individually. Now, as I say, then it becomes debtor. Then we look at our. Some people actually come to us. The person passing away that I now vividly remember because it was recently. You assess the situation, and that is where you say, but because it writing off bad debt, for instance, that is where you say, will it have a very let's call it a nasty experience for them? They can't afford it because it's. But usually you go through process. If you believe they can pay back, and they don't pay back, we go through debt collecting. We go through the process. But as I say, and then the people do have, in terms of our policy, they can apply to the HOD for you know, to be mitigated or whatever the case may be, because extreme swaar kry, I haven't got the word now for Afrikaans. Hardship. You know, you don't want to implement extreme hardship.
And
This guy,
in each case based on its merit.
on its merit, yes. So each case is individually investigated. Chair, coming to the supply chain.
Yeah, Honorable Maseko.
Thanks. I just want to find out, you mentioned that most of the time, and I take it from the other departments, most of the times people that passed away, that there's overpayment. There is a date of termination. For a person that resigns, do they give the notice? And if they do give the notice, why before the run is out, you cannot stop the payment? Or most of them, they do the 24 hours and they go, that's when you cannot stop the run for the payment.
Chair, thank you for the question. Usually your normal 30-day notice, you will very seldom find here. You get people that give 24-hour notice, and whether we agree with it or not, they just go. And what we also need to understand is we pay people on the 15th of the month. Actually, you pay 15 days ahead of them ending. So if somebody is paid on the 15th of the month, even if they do give 30-day notice, and on the 16th day they go, they've been paid. Then you go through process. If they leave on the 13th, we can still stop the payment. Yeah. We can still stop the payment, and then we go through the CSC, through normal process, etc. Say, okay, they've worked for 13 days, and then we, through CSC and parcel the processes, we will then give them what they want to. But if you at least can stop the payment that you owe them, and they rather not owe you, because as soon as they owe you, that is when your problem starts. I hope I make myself reasonably clear here. Chair, thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Shem, just a follow-up. I just want to also for the CFO to elaborate. You know, I had the same problem. Like, it happened with me personally. Yeah, it all depends. If you're honest, you will pay. Because for me, I got paid on the 15th, and then on the 24th, I had to resign. On the 25th, I was sworn in as a member of the WCPP. So when I got here, I got paid 2 weeks, and so I got double pay. You know, so I had to pay back. So those kind of issues happen. But now, what worked well is because I was within the system. But what happens now to an individual who got paid and is working for a private institution, you don't have his email address, he does not respond to emails. So how do you deal with such instances? Thank you.
Chair, you go through all those, and as I say, with us, you go through a process of you create a data, and then you will send an account, and after 3 months, we will, and you know, with no response, we will write a letter, and then we will hand over to the state attorney through our legal services. And as I say, then they make an assessment. And quite often, in your case, they would have most probably said it is not economically viable to pursue this matter. As soon as we get that kind of letter from the state attorney, who is our attorney, we write it off. We have no reason then or no other means of then dealing with it. But at least we had to go through process. It's not a matter of and that you don't have a forwarding address. That happens very often. It unfortunately does. Chair, thank you. Okay, then with a reference to supply chain, the words highly qualified, yes, I do believe we have very properly qualified people in supply chain. The head of supply chain is a BCom LLB, and one of his lieutenants has got an M in supply chain. So, and then you have others as well. But so I don't think we are very fortunate. We have a proper, specifically because supply chain is such a minefield of rules and regulations and laws. We actually went out to get ourselves an attorney to do the job. So in our case, I think we are very fortunate, and we have a proper made a proper appointment, and I think we all are good on that. Consequence management, I did talk to that. Chair, I think, oh yes, the last one was the question on type of procurement means, in other words, the limited ones. It was referred, I think you referred me to section 217 of the Constitution, where it says, it must be fair, equitable, transparent, competitive, and cost effective. That is the very first rule for supply chain. That is the very first one you go for. However, there are circumstances and there are rules also to actually determine when those circumstances, like emergencies, like urgencies, like limited bids, but those all go through a process. They must all be motivated additionally in terms of our AO system, our accounting officer system, and just about all of them then go through the bid committee anyway to be assessed. Does it fall within the ambit of what these rules are? So all I want to say is what you see here is the first, always the first go-to is we want to do section 217 of the Constitution. Only after that, we have what we call Fruit Loop by way of example. There's only one institution in the world that actually has the IP of that, so we've got to buy it from them. And that will be limited, not a limited, that will be a single service provider. But then we need also, from our side, we need evidence that that institution is the only institution. So I hope I've made it clear, because, as I say, these things only happen here after we've done the very first one. Chair, I think I'm more or less there. Thank you.
Thanks, CFO. Can I just check, Chair? Will these be recorded as deviations, or because, as you explained, those different circumstances, and you term them procurement other than that constitutional imperative, or they will still be recorded as a deviation? How is it treated?
A deviation needs to be explained whether it's acceptable or not. So we do not have to treat it, and we also submit these in terms of prescript. Also, at certain levels, we even have to submit to the Auditor General, and we also have to submit to National Treasury as soon as we deviate from actually section 217. Thank you, Chair.
Can I ask Ilse just to come quickly on climate change and Asia on SRUM?
Thank you, Head of Department, Chairperson, Member Nkondlo. Thank you for the question on climate change. It's actually quite a loaded question, so I'm going to try and keep my answer very short. I think agriculture is based on 3 pillars: soil, water, and climate. And that's the basis for production. And we've been doing in the department between the 3 programs of research and technology development services, sustainable resource use and management, and also agricultural economic services. Over many years, we've done work in that space. However, with the increase in adverse events, extreme climatic events, and the renewed focus on climate change worldwide, we've also deepened our focus on climate change, to such an extent that, as Minister mentioned, there's the Interministerial Committee on Climate Change now. There's also a transversal governance structure within the department. The entire portfolio of climate change is led by 2 departments, Agriculture and Environmental Affairs and Development Planning, led by the 2 ministers of Meyer and Bradell, supported by the 2 HODs of Sebopetsa and Gerber. And the respective teams are addressing climate change at various levels. In 2016, we released the Smart Agri Plan. It's the first sector plan of its kind. It was worldwide acknowledged as a superb plan. It's a roadmap to resilience in the agricultural sector. Since 2016, we've done a lot of work because in that plan, a lot of pointers came out of areas that we should focus on. We did an evaluation of that plan in 2021, 7 high-level recommendations, but the bottom line was the plan was of really extraordinary impact for the Western Cape. In 2022, we did a climate data update, so we know exactly what to predict in the future and what will be coming our way. In terms of your question on research, yes, we do deep research, if I can call it like that. Of the 91 projects that we've reported in this annual report, 20 of those have a climate change direct focus. So close to a third of our projects are on climate change. As I've said, it's a joint effort between my colleague Asha and the Sustainable Resource Use Management, and also the Research and Technology Development Program. I think what's very important is to know that the portfolio of climate change is from very deep research to disaster management, assessment of conditions, right down to the awareness. And to refer to awareness, also awareness with youth, young people. And we had in 2022 our first Youth and Climate Change Summit, 110 young people, the next generation of climate change ambassadors attended. And in August, we had our second very successful one in a rural area in Oudtshoorn. So we span our climate change focus on a wide range of fields. Quickly, in terms of what we are doing at a higher level on climate change, Minister referred to the agreement we signed with California in 2022. And from that, a lot of good things has evolved. One of it was that we will now develop a Mediterranean partnership, and hopefully on the 2nd of December, at COP28, you referred to COP17, I think, at COP28 in Dubai in November, December, on the 2nd of December, there will be the signing of the partnerships between the member countries, and the Western Cape will be one of those. We will also, to fast track our research efforts, sign on the 6th of November. It will be signed by HOD Sebopetsa and HOD Gerber with the University of Stellenbosch, New School for Climate Studies. There will be an agreement signed to fast track our research on climate change, but also tap into international funding. International funders are not so keen to fund governments anymore, but they are very keen to fund tertiary institutions. And we hope through that channel, we will also be able to tap into very important funds. In terms of training of people, apolitical, big organization training government officials has engaged the Western Cape. They're doing a lot of training, but they now have a climate change focus. They've started rolling out the awareness campaigns, but we've asked them to sit down with us and do tailor-made courses for our government officials, and also do master classes, and also do co-hosting of events. In February, we will have a climate change summit for the Western Cape. And I think what we are very proud of is the pioneering work we're doing in specific areas. And the one area, and that was also a priority area for the Smart Agri Plan, is conservation agriculture. We are pioneering in the Western Cape, pioneering in South Africa, but such an extent that we also won the bid for the 9th World Conference on Conservation Agriculture, which will be presented here in Cape Town at the CTICC in July 2024, bringing world-renowned experts in that field to the Western Cape. So in a nutshell, member, I think we're doing a lot of work in that area, but also within the department itself, our energy saving measures, our water conservation measures, within the department is also testimony of our support to climate change, because charity always starts at home. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, Chair, members. The ecological infrastructure project, and specifically river protection, it is the construction of groins and weirs within rivers, and it protects the rivers through preventing erosion by slowing down the velocity of water that flows down during a flood. So the high velocity of the water erodes the already eroded and unstable riverbanks. And in that way, it improves, it stabilizes the riverbanks, and it also prevents a decrease in water quality and water quantity. And it also ensures that that there's no washing away of orchards, vineyards, infrastructure, like we've seen with the June and the September floods, where we've seen that infrastructure had been washed away, and Citrusdal Road, as well as just down from the Citrusdal Road, there was the washing away of orchards of citrus that was also washed away in the June floods, as well as lots of orchards that had been washed away now with the September floods in the Cape Winelands district, as well as the Overberg districts. Thank you.
Chair, if you will permit me, I actually did not answer one question of Member Nkondlo, if you will just, and that is those on page 147.
Continue,
Sorry.
CFO. Do you want to follow up question
Yeah.
on the
Oh, sorry.
answers that were given there?
Yeah, on the issue of the, I just want to find out on the issue of the rivers. I think we went for an oversight to look and try to check the rivers. What was the reason for our rivers to deviate from their norm of flowing? And in what you are doing and what happened with the floods, if you have to do the diagnostic assessment of what is happening or what happened, what will be in your report? Because from what we could see, it was the alien vegetation that was within the rivers, and also some dumping and as a Department of Agriculture for sustainability of the water, I think is the key is to make sure that you also monitor the rivers for the sake of the food security. Now, with what you put in to sustain those waters that we need for food security, how did, especially in a place like Peterberg, we were surprised the extent that a place where you go to look for the citrus, like the capital of citrus fruits for marketing for the job. So as the department, how did that get to be missed if you are monitoring our water resources, or there is something that we are missing that we have to know? And I know the responsibility of National for Working for Waters, they have that responsibility, but also the communication from this department to the Working for Water has to happen if we are to sustain. So just interlink for us to understand also and Minister is not here. I wanted to ask him because looking at the research of the material, yeah, that wait, I won't get it now because I missed it the first time. The floods happened in California before they happened in Western Cape, and our climate is the same. So surely the anticipation was that is going to happen also if you do the research. Now, what are the measures and the investment? I mean, in the money, the investment to react before that happens. What did the department do to assist the farmers knowing that that is coming? Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. With regards to the work that we're doing, specifically in invasive alien clearing plants, we work closely with the Water User Association, and in that area, it is the Citrazal Water User Association, the Klein Willem Water User Association. In the upper reaches, it's the Kowa Bokkeveld Water User Association, and downstream is the Lorwa Water User Association. So what we are doing in collaboration with them is we combating or eradicating invasive alien plants along the rivers. And they, as HOD had mentioned, is one of our major partners in ensuring that there's follow-up. So they ensure that once we sign a MOA with them, that they recover a tariff from the water users to ensure that there's payment for follow-up of the invasive alien clearing, invasive alien plants. One of the challenges in that area had been the encroachment of the river by planting too close to the river, and it was in the 1 in 50 flood, 1 in 50-year flood line that had been bridged. And unfortunately, farmers take that risk, and it does have an impact on the river system itself. And the river system itself, and that loss is in unfortunately carried by the agricultural sector and downstream water users, because as it erodes the river banks, the sediment is taken downstream and it gets deposited. So that deposits form islands within the river, and in that way it reduces the available water as well as impact on water quality. So we've invested over the last 4 years 134 million. In this financial year that we're talking, it's close to 39 million that we've invested. And we've worked in collaboration with Water User Association and irrigation boards within the 5 districts of the province. And then we've also, with the river protection works, in the 22-23 financial year, we invested 18.5 million, and that is for erosion, soil erosion structures, which include the groins and the weirs. We also had funding from previous floods that we've used to use for areas that we have identified as high risk areas, and those ones we develop river maintenance and management plans that gets authorized prior to any floods or anything, to ensure that when there's a flood, that authorization is given to the farmers to go ahead with repair work, so that it's so that they're able to replace like for like. Currently, there's also legislation, the Land Care EMPR, Environmental Management Plan, that allows authorization. So both in terms of a water use authorization and environmental authorization, and that is done with all the users within the river system.
Thank you. I don't want to make a debate, but I think I have to make this comment. Like Member Seleku, I come from Citrusdal, so I know that river before the floods that it was alien vegetation there. So the river, the waters definitely had to create a road for itself, for it to flow. So the partnerships maybe from the Department of Agriculture that you do have in clearing and monitoring of the waters have to also come to the part to literally do what you expect them to do in that partnership, because that river was just a disaster waiting to happen, and that's the reality of it. So we need to look at the investment of the 134 million to really pay dividends for the department moving forward. Thank you, Chair.
For you, HOD, on the issue of the flow of the river that eventually erode the banks of the river, and then in the process washes away the fruits trees that are on the bank of the river. And you are saying most of those fruit trees are on the 1:50 year flat line. So was there no environmental impact conducted so as to also not only warn the farmers, they must not do that, because the little bit I know, the basic I know about environment is that when they on these flat lines, you are not allowed. There are strict conditions that you are not allowed to do that. Now, one of the things that tells us not to do that is the environmental impact assessment. It will tell you in 50 years, if you build a house here, the river will come and remove it. So were these farmers not warned through, or maybe there might have not been an environmental impact assessment that was done?
Can I come in? Okay. Thank you very much. I wish you were in the room yesterday when we appeared before Treasury, because this is exactly the argument we raised, that we need to invest in ecological infrastructure work. That's your alien clearing, that's your river protection works. Because what we have seen in the last two flood episodes is that where water was directed, there was no damage to soil removal, there was no damage to orchards. But we must also accept that climate change is actually taking root as we speak. Things are changing in a big way. But science has taught us already that we need to invest more in ecological infrastructure work. The budget that I've had in the last 4 years is 134 million rands. That's not enough. We definitely need much more, given what the scientists are telling us with respect to the floods, the fires, and the droughts that are going to hit us. Now, the question is, were farmers not warned? Farmers are warned all the time. In fact, up to last week, Friday, there was no avian influenza H7 in the Western Cape. And by the past weekend, we were now informed. In fact, our vets detected that there was one detected in the Garden Route region. This was because some farmers decided to go against the advice at the time and procured chicks from affected provinces. So farmers are advised, but at times farmers also make their own decisions. So on the climate change issue, the argument we have made solidly was the fact that we need to invest a bit more on ecological infrastructure, river protection works. That is the thing that will protect agriculture going into the future. And we made a solid case yesterday, and we are hopeful that there will be resources coming this way so that we continue the partnerships with the Water Users Association to do the work we need to do. Because if we don't do that, we will be challenged going into the future. Thank you, Chair. I thought I must raise that one. If you may allow me, Chair, on page 147, the question that was raised by Member Nkondlo in terms of the attendance, these are colleagues who are not members of EMCO. They attend on invitation to come and address specific issues. On page 146, those are the members of EMCO. Page 147 is people that come and make presentations to EMCO. They are not themselves appointed members of EMCO. Thank you, Chair.
Honorable Nkonzo. Okay, these would be my last questions, and they are to Casidra. But I want to appreciate, I think, the long conversation we just had now. Hopefully, you know, as human beings with all our institutions, both public and private, at some point, the penny will drop. Because I think from COP17 to now, COP28, 2028, that's what you're saying. We're still trying to have conversations amongst ourselves. And one thing I keep on every time I get this opportunity, I think I've been educated on issues of climate change through the work that this department does, and I must take my head off because I always, you know, see you and I know we're gonna get into, you know, a real science behind what is seriously happening. If we were listening from both government, private sector, if we were listening, because I think issues of climate change, we don't take them serious until there's a crisis, you know. So I'm hoping with all of these things, and such that minister has left, I think it's actually commendable that he would have asked or taken lead to champion and have this IMC, and there would be something beyond meetings and meetings, because the reality of climate change, the nature is fighting for itself now that we have chosen to just do reports, studies, spend the money, come to Scopa, argue that we've done this reports. Yes, they are there, but nothing actually in terms of the speedily shift, you know, in terms of what nature is telling us. So I'm not a climate change fundi, but I'm just saying, I think I've learned over time, having listened, I think, to some of the things that this department would have raised many a times, I think, on the work that you are doing. So I just want to give my hat off in the work that we're doing and continue to pursue that this matter becomes central in government's agenda, because we can talk everything else, throw heads and everything. But if we mess up nature, the reality of the matter is that all of us are going to be in, I don't want to use that slang, you know, but we're going to be exactly there, as we have seen now with the floods and many other things. My last question, Chair, I think it's on Casidra. If we consider Casidra and what AG has given a report to us on program 2, page numbers, I think 24, is that program 2, if you look at it, has achieved 25% of its programs. And I'm hoping that those that are implementing that programs are here to answer for themselves. And I think there's a question there on the impact of such performance to service delivery. And I'm hoping Casidra can shed light about that. Whilst I think from where I'm sitting, the fact that it is said that these are demand-driven indicators, and when you read about those specific indicators of program 2, which is the 2 sub-programs, management of government farms, which is ameliorate, and the other one, and the farmer support, that one. Thank you, Chair. That's why you are here. And then the farmer support and development program. I think my issue, Chair, I'm not sure whether it's how we set targets. We had actually a whole discussion with the AG and the audit committee around this particular issue. Maybe it's something that we'll have to go back to with our colleagues in these committees. Because I see part of the reasons for deviations, as an example, in 2.1 is community consultation processes that are taking longer than anticipated. Obviously, there are issues. And it's about whether such a target, understanding community dynamics, would have been provided for in that target when it was set, you know. And also, if you consider some of the issues that these targets are demand-driven,
requests are demand driven. I don't think it says anything, you know. So, and that affects service delivery. But I'm interested, I think, from this particular program on agriculture and land reform, to understand, colleagues, what exactly is the problem. So, no when it comes to achieving only 20% of your targets that you have set without anybody putting a gun on your head. You put these targets, then you are unable to achieve them. Then the last questions I have on Casidra. On page 58, there is this thing on investigations. Can you just give what is the latest state of this matter? I see it is said now that the service provider has been placed under business rescue. What's the implication of this a particular investigation, if you can give us an indication? And the last one is on the contingent liabilities on that particular case, on allegations around the clear alien vegetation. When do you think this case will be concluded? Those will be my last questions for this round. Thank you very much, Chair.
If I may just add my one or two on some of the issues raised by Honorable Nkondlo, is on exactly on that case, which is mentioned in 288. It's about the claim, maybe the claim that a person has against, I see it also is raised on page 73 of Casidra's report, this claim for damages. How far is that case? What is the progress thereof? I know it might be subject to decay, but you don't necessarily have to give us the details, but just progress on it, as it is raised as some kind of a liability and a risk as well. Then the last one will be on similarly to what has been raised by Honorable Nkondlo, citing the Auditor General's report on page 8 on Casidra. And they've mentioned the two programs. And obviously we asked the motivation for the programs, you know, they did give us the explanation. But I just want to check on the progress on program 2, particularly the first bullet point on to manage government farms, which is Amelionstein and Vikral. And there's supposed to be a turnaround there. How is the progress on that turnaround? Because you've actually listed it as one of your programs. Thank you, HOD. Honorable Maseko.
I thought we were still doing the department only. If Somar, they can answer to the 4.7 because they never answered. I thought we were still on the department.
On
so the
4.7.
Yeah, of Casidra. It was in response.
Oh, yes.
To.
Yeah. If we can also deal with the issue of 4.7 irregular on Casidra.
Can I deal with it now?
Yeah.
Okay. During 2017, Casidra advertised and awarded a tender to a contractor to do work in the river under submerged conditions. After one or two site inspections or progress to see how matters were progressing, matters were brought under his attention that things weren't going right. He was then awarded a period of time to correct that. He couldn't, and then he was asked to vacate the site. The job was put out on tender again. It was during 2018. Also, and I'll come back to that later, during that period, the VAT changed from 14% to 15%. The second time around, the same person or contractor tendered, but he didn't. He was one of the unsuccessful bidders. After the tender was awarded, he requested information from the other bidders, and he was given the information. Then he wrote a letter asking questions, and I answered him. He was still not satisfied, and I then recommended that he lodge a formal appeal.
He appealed the matter, and the appeal was heard in Casidra, and his appeal was dismissed. Then he threatened me or said that he will not leave the matter there. He phoned the minister, he phoned the department, he phoned everybody. The minister referred the matter back to the board, and the board referred the matter to the Audit and Risk Committee. The Audit and Risk Committee looked at the facts and they were satisfied, but to be safe, they recommended that the external audit company be appointed to investigate the matter. The matter was investigated, and the audit company reported to the board that they could not find anything to be reported. Period thereafter, I received a phone call from the public protector and said that she's investigating the matter. We made an appointment, we submitted the information to them. It took quite some time, I think it was almost 2 years or a year and a half. Then eventually she issued a final report saying that she's satisfied with the matter. In the meantime, the Auditor General, during the normal course of the audit, audited the transactions, and they didn't raise any findings in that regard. I think it was 2 years ago that we received a phone call from the SIU. They set up a meeting and they started with a new investigation from their side. And one of the things that bothered them, and I referred to the VAT that changed from 14 to 15%. 3 tenderers, when Casidra sent out the documentation, the VAT was stated as 14%. 3 of the tenderers, bidders, changed it personally to 15% because the VAT rate was 15% at that point in time. The one person, unfortunately, the successful bidder, did not change it and submit the VAT at 14%. Now, in the tender document, there's a clause saying that when we pick up errors or calculation errors may be corrected by us whilst doing the investigation, the evaluation. So we found the tenderer and said, but we're going to change yours also to 15% because you cannot operate on 14% when the VAT rate is 15%. Now, according to the SIU, Casidra changed it, and they couldn't find evidence that it was done by the bidder. So that was one of the big things that bothered them. So according to the SIU then, and I think they started with the matter in 2021, and I think in 22 they came with a report and saying, but this is irregular. They're going to report it as irregular. So therefore, the board said, if it's then irregular, so now in this financial year, we reported that then is irregular. We already put the matter through the investigations now again, back to the Audit and Risk Committee saying matter was discussed or brought to our attention by the SIU. Here are the facts. The Audit and Risk Committee made a recommendation to the board. They satisfied. We can request condonation. The matter was tabled at the board meeting. The board was satisfied. And we already, I think in March or February this year, we submitted the documentation now back to PT to get the final condonation. Unfortunately, as I'm sitting here, it's still outstanding because these things do take time, and PT informed us that they've got a lot of other matters, specifically, I think, from health and so forth, that's keeping them busy. But yes, the matter, actually, the transactions, the bid was awarded 2018 and it was paid 2018, 2019. And it was brought under the 10th final, came onto the table via the SIU, and that is for the full amount of that 4.7.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. So we will have. I think I'll ask the CFO to also respond to the SASH issues, the case against Casidra on page 73. We'll also ask the CFO to quickly speak to us about that, and then I think there was a question around program 2 and us only reaching 25% of the targets that were set there. We have since looked at our targets. We do realize that the targets that were set in the previous year, especially those around the ones that are very much dependent on, for example, say the Department of Agriculture. Those ones we have re-looked at, and hopefully in the coming year that we won't have the same outcomes on that particular one. In terms of us not having or having an impact on service delivery, we believe that the amount of work that we've done in terms of food security, the community gardens, the delivery of projects in terms of the disaster relief, river clearing and stabilization work, the work that we're doing in terms of the financial record keeping and market access that we assist the department in. We believe that we reach a significant amount of households and communities, and we believe that if there is a project that is being given to us, we deliver on that particular mandate. So I think we don't want to speak about why we don't receive the particular funds on a particular project, but if we get that funds, we really do our best to deliver on that particular project. So I'll just hand over to our CFO to answer the other questions.
Chair, thank you. The contingent liability, it is note 34 on page 73 in Casidra's annual report. That is the same matter, I believe, that you're referring also to in the department's annual report. You read the background or what led that built up to the claim. Now, the person, Casidra, is the fifth respondent in this claim. It is, amongst others, the department, Cape Nature. I'm not quite sure whether it is the province, the premier, and so forth. But it is the same matter. So we've appointed. We asked the state attorney to see whether, because it is the department and Cape Nature and so forth, whether they can defend the case. And I said no. The attorneys aren't allowed to defend the same client, more than one client on the same matter, unless it's a group claim, and this is not the case. So Casidra appointed attorneys to have a look at this, and obviously we've objected against the matter then already, and it was based on the information that we submitted to the attorneys. But now these things do take time, because it's now from our attorneys to their attorneys, and it's letter back and giving information. So in the end, it was then on the roll for the courts, and it was said, but where are we now? I've heard a rumor, and I don't want to go further with that, then they actually decided to let certain instances or entities off the hook, but it was never confirmed. So the last time I think I've inquired was it May, before we finalized the annual report, and our attorney said they've contacted the plaintiff for a meeting, but unfortunately at that meeting they didn't pitch up. That does not mean that we're off the hook. We have to wait and see, because that person now they must digest what they receive back from the various attorneys about the reasons why they cannot proceed with the matter. So to answer you, no, I don't have any other further information in this regard, other than to say it's with the attorneys. And even when there's movement on the matter, we will obviously react on that. The page 58 matter is another thing. That is, Casidra is for mussel farm, where we made a payment for mussel lines and floats and a number of things. There was a deposit or an upfront payment made, and then after an investigation, we received complaints where it was said that maybe some of the equipment was second-hand and so forth and so forth. Now, if you put a buoy or a rope in the sea after 6 months or so, you and you think it's new, you will not establish by that, just by mere looking at it, whether it's an old or a new one. So when we've heard it, we had a look at it, but then we said we need divers to go in and to see. Yes, there were matters, things that wasn't right, and also this person or the company was put on terms, and they were requested to correct the things, and not all of that was corrected. And then we received a notice from them that they filed for business rescue. Now, then you can't lay any claims against them. So we then put in a claim and said, but even if it is second-hand floats or ropes, at least give us the value of the money that we did not receive the equipment for. And unfortunately, that is the last. I'm not quite sure whether David has got more information about their business rescue process, but to the best of my understanding, they did not perform up until now by giving us either back the money or by submitting or giving us, supplying the equipment that was requested.
For Amelinstein and Run.
I don't know if the HOD want to touch on that.
Thank you very much. I think the turnaround strategy, or a number of those, had been concluded. The challenge we're sitting with now is how do we fund those turnaround strategies? But also coupled with that is the observation and experience that taught us that those farms cannot be farmed in their current form by communities. So that is why there is an IJR process engaging the communities, both Amelinstein and Vaikral, with a view to encourage them to establish a legal entity of their choice, which entity can perhaps begin to farm the farm. Because if you know land reform, what has happened up to now, where farms were given to bigger or larger groups of people, those farms had collapsed because of conflict. And that is why we moved, government moved to PLUS, proactive land acquisition strategy, where these farms were given to families or legal entities. So that is really what is happening now. And as you know, it will be a process. It's not an event, because everybody in the community have their own belief about the farm. So our view is that once they have decided on what a possible legal entity is, that entity will be the one that start to run the operations and perhaps begin to lease the land from the community, but run it as a business so that we can begin to see a success. The reality of the matter as we sit here now is that we have been unable until now to advise that those farms be transferred in their current form, because we'll be transferring an unworkable farm to a community, and we think doing so will be totally irresponsible. And hence, also, we don't want to come as people that know everything and impose to the community what the approach should be. So the IJR process is currently going on. Suffice to say, there is total buy-in from both communities, because they trust an independent facilitator who's now working with them to then develop what will work for them. And on the basis of that, our view is that that entity may then be able to get access to private financing, possibly with some grant financing, to then enable those farms to run as a sustainable and viable units. That's really where we are with those two farms. It's not a straightforward answer, because it's a very complicated one. It has been coming on for many years. But we hold a view. We cannot recommend transfer of a farm that is not working to the community. It will be irresponsible, and it will be a lack of respect from us to that community.
Honorable Maseko.
Okay. I think it's a follow-up from me from the CFO for Casidra. You talked about the upfront payment that was done. Is it a normal practice to do that? And looking at Casidra is like, I think we talked about is project management, like entity for the department. And if you do the upfront payment like that, who absorbs the risk for that? Is the department or yourselves as a project management? And if it took 6 months for you to go and check the equipment, who's doing monitoring when coming to the implementation of the projects that you do allocate to the bidders within the Casidra? Just to get the clarity, to get an idea of how do you work. Thank you very much.
Jay, thank you. There are a number of payments that we do make an upfront payment, specifically because we do not open accounts, say for instance with the co-ops. But they say we're not going to give you the equipment unless you prove payment. So what we ask for is a pro forma invoice. Then we go through our records and make sure that the person is registered on the CSD, make sure that their tax status, that they're compliant, and we check on our register and books whether they are listed as an underperformer based on on the history. When it's not, supply chain will request from me authorization to make the payment. By that time, I've got the invoice right in front of me. I see the amount and I can say yes or no. So that is how that process works. But there are, unfortunately, a number of these transactions. Don't quote me on did I say 6 months? No. To investigate, I'm not part of the project team doing the investigations, but I can promise you it's not 6 months. They are there on a regular basis doing the necessary inspections. I mean, even when we need confirmation when goods are delivered. Now, I'm not on site, but I make a payment on proof of someone's signature that was on site and that was satisfied with the equipment that was ordered. In some instances, for instance, a plane ticket, we book the plane ticket and by the time you get to the airport, there's a strike or something and you can't fly. Those things unfortunately do happen, but not to a very large extent. The normal transactions are with co-ops and so forth where we make the upfront payments.
Thank you very much. I think the luxury of being in this side of the chambers and the Scopa is I've been here, I think, almost 10 years. And there was an issue in the past that eventually there are officials that took responsibility in due diligence for the payments and everything. And I'm asking this because of we usually say that when coming to the government, it mustn't be my signature. It has to be the trail of other people that are checking if everything is in order before that. Now, if a company comes and then due diligence of everything has been checked, and then after about 6 months or 12 months, you say, hey, I cannot do the job, it's worrisome. Because they need to be the red flags that have been identified one way or another. It doesn't happen just like that after you received a portion of the money. So it's something that maybe Casidra has to look at. It's the SOP that you do have. Is it really working for you or it is not working for you? I don't know. You know, how do you operate? But some way, somehow, it has to be that you don't have about a 4.7. As a scoper, we were with another department yesterday. We said, hey, you did well and the meeting agenda by 3:30. So if we are in the department that we don't see the 4.7, we'll be out of here unless you look at the SOP that you have to check what is it that we can do that will be better for the sake of the investment that we are doing within Casidra. Thank you, Chair.
Chair, I am satisfied with the procedures, the policies and the SOPs in place. this matter, specifically the ropes and stuff, there was stuff that was to be imported. And a big order, someone is not going to steel putting up a pack shed is also one of those matters. They said the contractor said, I'm not going to finance this. You must at least pay 50% of the steel up front. But yes, we've done the calculations. We know the businesses. Back to the muscle line ones, they need the payment for things that was to be imported. And that's why an amount was paid for as a deposit. And when we followed up, that is where we found out that there were a few things that was not correct.
Honorable Seleko. Honorable America. So, so if everyone is good on this side, then that means one way or the other we have exhausted all the questions we would have liked to ask to the department, to Casidra, and also to the audit committee as well as the auditor general. Now, in finalizing the meeting, before I am going to thank everybody, I'm going to hand over to Honorable Maseko.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, like I mentioned that we've been in this, I think I've been around here for almost 10 years, and there are some of the officials that have really made a mark with being in front of us all the time. And they've made strides, much as we don't always say, thank you for the contributions that you are making as the department, you know, that we appreciate each and every stride that you make within the Western Cape communities. We are here as we ask the questions in a way to get more information, and where we need to be go deeper to get the information is just for the benefit of our communities. So there is one official today that is a official that he will be leaving us, as this is the 6th Parliament in Western Cape. We are not going to see him. Maybe if we come back, and he's been contributing in this department for a very long time, that we would love to say thank you with a little token. That would...
Yeah, I think as a symbol of appreciation,
CFO, you really have, you don't have a clue that you taught us a lot. By the way, when we ask these difficult questions, blame yourself that you have taught us about what does it entail really to run this department. I've watched you, I've listened to you for about 10 years. Me and your minister, Ivan Meyer, find us here, by the way. We've been having this relationship. So thank you, and thank you for contributing to the communities of Western Cape. And this is a little token for you to say thank you.
Yes, that is the lighter side of the Scopa committee. So after all, we are human beings. So we do have our soft side. So that has been a token of appreciation from Honorable Maseko to say thank you for the long service and the time that we have spent in the department, as well as actually your time of serving. the provincial government. Thank you very much, CFO. It is highly appreciated. Let me also make use of the opportunity, ladies and gentlemen, to thank everybody who has come from the department, led by the Honorable Minister and the HOD, CASIDRA and its CEO, and the rest of the delegation. And also thank our reliable allies on that side, that is the Auditor General of South Africa, as well as the Audit Committee. They are our dependable ally in the process of the accountability ecosystem. They actually make our job a little bit easier by actually briefing us as to how is the department functioning. And also thank the department for always being available whenever we call. The questions, as I always say, that we are asking is not in any way try to catch you up or to trick you, is to try to make sure that we are actually exercising our responsibility as the committee that is supposed to hold the executive accountable. And you've also learned that we are not difficult people. We just want to have some of the questions that we ask, if you are able to answer them, be answered. Thank you very much for that. And the meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much. We closed, yeah. No, kaloku enormous.